Have you ever felt like your Mac has a mind of its own? One day it's working smoothly and the next you're stuck watching the spinning beach ball of doom while your patience wears thin? I've been there. You start wondering if it's time to buy a new one. But let me tell you something, most of the time you don't need a new Mac. You just need to optimize the one you already have. I learned this the hard way, going down a rabbit hole of tweaks, settings, and hidden tricks that Apple doesn't advertise. And once I figured them out, my Mac went from frustratingly slow to running like it was fresh out of the box. In this video, I'll take you step by step through everything you need to do to speed up your Mac and boost your productivity. By the end of this, your Mac will feel snappier, your workflow will be smoother, and you'll wonder why you didn't do these things sooner. And make sure you stick around until the very end because there's one trick, something Apple never tells you, that can completely transform how your Mac performs. Before we start fixing anything, we need to understand why Macs slow down in the first place. A lot of people assume it's just because their Mac is old. That's not entirely true. Think about it, when you first bought your Mac, it was lightning fast. Over time, things started getting sluggish, but not because the hardware got worse, it's because of how we use it. The first major culprit is background processes. Every time you install an app, chances are it's running something in the background, even when you're not using it. And the more apps you have doing this, the more your Mac struggles to keep up. Then there's cache buildup. Every app you use stores cache files to make things faster. But ironically, when those files pile up, they start doing the opposite, slowing everything down. Another sneaky reason is startup programs. Have you ever noticed that when you turn on your Mac, certain apps launch automatically? That's because they've been set to open at startup. And every time you boot up your Mac, they start running in the background without you even realizing it. This not only slows down your startup time, but also keeps consuming system resources. And let's not forget about browser issues. If you're using Google Chrome, I guarantee it's hogging your memory. Chrome is notorious for eating up RAM, and if you have a ton of tabs open, your Mac is going to feel it. But the worst part? Even if you close all your tabs, Chrome is still running background processes that continue to drain performance. Finally, storage space plays a huge role. If your Mac's storage is almost full, it doesn't have enough breathing room to operate efficiently. Macs use a technique called virtual memory, which means when they run out of RAM, they use a portion of your storage as temporary memory. But if your storage is nearly full, your Mac has nowhere to offload this extra workload, and everything slows down. Now that you know why your Mac is slowing down, let's start fixing it. And stick with me because in just a moment, I'll reveal a hidden system process that could be silently wrecking your performance. The first thing we need to do is free up RAM and CPU power. The easiest way to check what's hogging your system resources is to open Activity Monitor. Just press Command Space, type in Activity Monitor and hit Enter. Once you're in, sort by CPU usage. Right away, you'll see which apps are consuming the most processing power. If you see something using a lot of CPU that you don't need running, select it and click the X button to force quit. But there's something else most people overlook. Some system processes can get stuck and start using way more resources than they should. One of the biggest offenders is a process called MDS and MD Worker, which are responsible for indexing files for Spotlight search. If you recently added a lot of files to your Mac, these processes will run in the background, sometimes for hours, making your Mac feel slow. The fix? If you don't use Spotlight often, you can disable indexing for specific folders to prevent these processes from overloading your system. Now let's talk about RAM. If your Mac is constantly running out of memory, even when you're not doing much, it's likely because of something called memory swapping. This happens when your Mac runs out of physical RAM and starts using your storage instead. To avoid this, you need to close unnecessary apps, especially ones running in the background. If you're using Google Chrome, you might notice it's eating up a ton of memory. That's because every tab is treated as a separate process, meaning the more tabs you have open, the more RAM you're using. One quick fix is to switch to Safari or Brave, which are way more optimized for macOS. But if you must use Chrome, consider using a tab manager to keep things under control. Another trick that makes a massive difference is reducing visual effects. macOS has a lot of fancy animations that look nice, but actually slow things down. You can disable these by going to System Settings, then Accessibility, and turning on Reduce Motion. Trust me, you won't even miss the animations, but you'll definitely notice the speed boost. And here's something most people don't know. If you've ever used an external hard drive or SSD that wasn't formatted for macOS, your system might be constantly trying to read and index it, which can slow everything down. if you have an external drive that you don't use often, try unplugging it and see if your Mac speeds up. Now, we've made some great improvements so far, but there's still one thing we haven't tackled: your startup programs. This is something that slows down every Mac over time, but hardly anyone takes the time to fix it. And in just a second, I'll show you how. Now that we've tackled the major performance issues, let's go deeper. Sometimes even after optimizing background processes and freeing up RAM, your Mac still doesn't feel as fast as it should. That's because there's another problem: system clutter. Over time, your Mac accumulates old system logs, temporary files, unused app data, and even hidden remnants of apps you thought you deleted. These junk files take up space and slow things down. The first step is to clean up your storage properly. A lot of people use third-party apps like Clean My Mac, but honestly, you don't need them. macOS has built-in tools that do the job just as well. Go to About This Mac, click Storage, and then click Manage. Here you'll see different categories like Documents, System Data, and Applications. Start by going through your largest files and deleting anything you no longer need. You'd be surprised how many forgotten downloads and old video files are eating up space. But here's the thing: the biggest storage hog is usually system data. Unfortunately, macOS doesn't give you an easy way to clear it out. One trick that works is manually deleting old cache files. Open Finder, click Go in the menu bar, then select Go to Folder. Type in the following command and press Enter. You'll see a bunch of folders, each belonging to different apps. Some of these cache files are small, but others, especially ones from old apps, can be several gigabytes in size. Delete them, then empty your trash. Another thing that slows down Macs over time is leftover app files. When you uninstall an app, it doesn't always remove all of its files. Some apps leave behind preference files, support files, and even hidden background services. To fully delete an app, use Finder to search for any remaining files after you uninstall it. Look in the following command and delete anything related to apps you no longer use. Now let's talk about something most people don't think about: your downloads folder. I'm willing to bet that your downloads folder is filled with old installers, duplicate PDFs, and random files you've completely forgotten about. The problem is, a cluttered downloads folder not only takes up space, but also slows down Finder. That's because every time you open Finder, it has to load and index all those files. So take a few minutes to clean it out. At this point, we've removed unnecessary apps, cleared out old cache files, and optimized system storage. But what if your Mac still doesn't feel fast enough? That's when it's time for a system reset. This is something Apple doesn't talk about much, but a clean reinstall of macOS can make a huge difference. And don't worry, you don't have to lose your files. Here's how to do it. First, back up your Mac using Time Machine. This ensures you don't lose anything important. Next, restart your Mac and hold down Command and R to enter macOS recovery mode. Once you're in, select Reinstall macOS and follow the on-screen instructions. What this does is reinstall a clean version of macOS without affecting your files or apps. It's like giving your Mac a fresh start, and trust me, the speed boost is noticeable. If you've made it this far, your Mac is probably already running a lot faster. But there's still one final trick, and it's something even advanced Mac users don't know about. Here's something Apple doesn't talk about. Your Mac has hidden performance modes that can be adjusted for better speed. By default, macOS tries to balance performance and battery life, which is great for casual users, but not ideal for power users. If you want your Mac to run at full speed all the time, you need to enable high performance mode. To do this, open Terminal and type the following command. This disables deep sleep mode, which makes your Mac more responsive. Another useful command is: this increases your Mac's ability to handle multiple network connections at once, improving browsing speed and online performance. But the most powerful command is the following. This manually clears inactive memory, instantly freeing up RAM. Try running it after you've been using your Mac for a while, and you'll see an immediate difference. Now let's talk about macOS betas. If you want the latest performance improvements, consider enrolling in Apple's beta program. Beta versions often include optimizations that won't be available to the public for months. Just be aware that beta software can sometimes have bugs, so make sure you back up your system before installing it. Finally, let's talk about upgrading hardware. If you have an older Mac with a traditional hard drive, upgrading to an SSD is the single best thing you can do. It's like going from a bicycle to a race car. Even a 2012 MacBook Pro with an SSD will outperform a newer model with a standard hard drive. And if you already have an SSD, upgrading your RAM can also make a huge difference, especially if you do a lot of multitasking. And there you have it, your Mac should now be running faster than ever. But I want to hear from you. Which tip made the biggest difference for you? Drop a comment below and let me know if your Mac feels snappier after these optimizations. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more tech hacks. I post videos like this all the time and I'd love to have you as part of the community. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.